Welcome to the Champion Circle. I want to let everyone know that we are super excited today, just like we are with every guest. We are here as a result of the support from Liga de Justicia Abogados and Liga de Justicia Foundation, where they are allowing us to have this podcast every week in order to highlight, to showcase amazing individuals that are doing excellent work in the community, that are making a difference and that are being change agents and changing the world. Today, we are blessed and fortunate enough to have someone that I consider to be family, someone who I consider to be a friend, and someone who I believe inspires not just me, but the entire community each and every day with her hard work and her dedication to making a difference. She is someone that we consider to be part of our chosen family. She is a champion, and I want you and our audience to get to know her, and it's none other than Ana Figueroa. Thank you for being here, Ana.
Thank you for having me here, Mark, today.
I truly am super excited to get to know a little bit more about you and your journey and your life experience and all of the great work that you're doing now and you've done in the past. So typically what I like to do is just tell the story of the person that we are showcasing, highlight their journey from beginning to end. So talk to our audience and let them know, where were you born, and talk about your youth and your youth experience.
Okay, well, I was born in Santurce, Puerto Rico, and I was raised there until I was 15, that I transitioned here to the States. I would give anything to go back.
Really?
I think the upbringing and being in La Isla, even though, I was raised by a single mom after a while, it was just beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was just different. It was a sense of family, it was a sense of unity more than anything. Wherever you turn, you had somebody, that knew you, somebody that was family. So you had no choice but to feel the love, regardless of where you turn or not. The beaches, of course, what can I say? No puedo decir otra. I would still be on holiday if I was in Puerto Rico celebrando Reyes or whatever, not going back to school until. But I think everything overall, as far as childhood back then, was totally different. Totally different. Go out to the patio, because of course my abuelita had fincas. And you go out there and grab a parcha or a passion fruit, as well, una guanábana. Right. That's how I was brought up. Right. You play with the pig, let's put it that way, for the whole year. And guess what you're eating? Nochebuena, here we come. But that's what it was. Right. It was just different. Right. It was just lovely.
So you have beautiful memories about being raised in a finca in Puerto Rico with your grandparents, right? Did you have like mosquiteros and all of that stuff, right?
Of course. Right. And the sink in one of the cuartos, my abuelita had the sink techo. Right. And that's where we went when it rained.
Right.
Just the listening, of the raindrops on that sink techo, as they would say, it was just great. And you didn't think, a lot of people may look at it today as like, oh my God, we were poor. I never thought we were poor. Right. We were just right. Right. We were just right. We had what we needed. We had the basics. Yes, we didn't have everything, but who has everything, But it was enough for me to be able to be who I am today.
Right. And that developed your cultural identity.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And I still carry that in my kids. Right. They have no choice but to carry that,
Yeah, because you wear that with such pride and such beauty each and every day.
I do. That's who I am. Right. That's who I am. You ask me. And I have to say, coming here, that was one of my main things. Why are you asking me where I'm from? And why are you asking me even gender? Like, don't you see that I'm a girl? Right. But one of my things here was that, why can't I just say that I'm Puerto Rican? I'm none of these that are here on the list. And that was one of my main things at 15.
Interesting.
So that was one of my first fights.
Okay. All right. So before we get into all of the battles that you've been part of, and all the things that you've championed here on the continental side of the United States. Let's talk about, what were your childhood experiences? Talk to us about some fond memories that you have of growing up, perhaps your grandfather, different things.
My grandfather was my all. My grandfather, when he actually ended up living with us with my mom back then. And my grandfather would be the one that did not know how to cook, but will cook for you. Hey, venga, mija, this is what we're doing today. And all of a sudden you don't know what you're eating, but okay,
right.
I'm with grandpa. And they own a fonda. In Puerto Rico, it would be a fonda, like a little restaurant. Right. And all the workers would go there every day. And that was one of my fondest memories with them, because they would go there in the mornings, pick up, bring with the loncheras back then, right. And sit down and have their breakfast, and then take the loncheras with them. And then on Fridays, I remember, you had a line of people just paying them back. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they were going there. So my abuela had this whole black and white marble notebook and would write down, I don't know, okay, so Mark came here today, and the lunch and the breakfast, so it might be, like $25 a week? Right. But this is what their life was about. Okay. So you had the huge calderos and las ollas up at 4 o'clock in the morning cooking, because by 5:30 you would have people coming in, and sitting down for lunch, grabbing their coffee or grabbing their food to go, their lunch to go.
Right. They wanted homemade food.
Yes.
They didn't want to go to.
Oh no, absolutely. Right. You will have a sancocho up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You have rice on the other end, or una avena. Right. Because we grew up in avena, farina, and all of those. So I that was me, and I loved that. So one of those things was that. And of course, when he couldn't, do that they didn't have the fonda anymore. He ended up doing the landscaping for the whole urbanización. So one day you would find him at one house, and the next day you would find him in the other one. And this all with a second grade education.
God bless. That's amazing.
This all with a second grade education. So that was somebody, yes, my dad was in my life off and on. But once he was out, I think I was about 3 years old when they separated. So my abuelo was everything. I would sit with him. I would be the alcahueta one, I have to say, because he would get in trouble, But I have to say that was it. And I always, my fondest memory from him is that he would read the paper for me every morning. I just told you he had a second grade education, right? I thought I was the girl that went to school super preparada, prepared, because I know all the news that happened, because El Vocero, El Nuevo Día, the newspapers back then. My abuelito would read to me. I was 32, pregnant with my son, when I found out my abuelito did not know how to read.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, yeah, no, you guys are kidding me. And he just happened to be in conversations, with los primos or my cousins and all. And I was like, what do you mean? Of course he knew. Said, no, you were the only one he would read to, and you would believe everything he would tell you just because he was looking at the picture on the paper.
Wow. That is one of the greatest expressions of love I've ever heard in my life.
And he would. Right. He would take or he would sing, because he was a trovador. You sing and all. So he would sit down with his puro or tobacco and with his shot of whiskey at nighttime after he did what he had to do that day, and actually sing. So I used to sit there and just love it, listen to him while he was serenading the whole, urbanización there. And it was just that pure sense of love and knowing that you were okay.
Right. Yeah. So I'm sure he adored you, right? And you felt that love through his expressions each and every day.
Yep, he received many correazos on my behalf. I would go run to him, abuelo, and here comes my mom, and of course, back then. But he was, ay, deja el angelito quieto, leave my little angel alone. And that's just what it is. And honestly, today, I still use some of those fond memories to get me through some of the hardest days.
Interesting. Those are beautiful memories that you can carry forever. And even though he's not with us today, you can feel that love. And I'm sure he's watching over you and he's very proud of you.
I hope so.
He is, for sure. So you go up until, I would imagine, about 8th grade, right? While you were in Puerto Rico?
I had just graduated, yes, from 7th, 8th, 9th grade in Puerto Rico.
Right.
That was junior high school,
Sure.
more or less.
Yep.
I was going through La Escuela Libre de Música. Over there, I went through from 7 through 9. And then we transitioned here.
Did you have a musical kind of passion back then?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I definitely love dance. That was one of the things, drama.
Okay.
But I played the violin because you had no choice but to play that instrument. And that is something I have been entertaining lately. I'm like, I should just go back to it. I might. It's like getting back on a bike, you know, and knowing how to play it. So I think that would be something that I would definitely go back to.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
You see, the beautiful part about this podcast is many of the people that I've been able to interview, I knew or I know, right? But you always learn something new about them. And my viewers tell me the same thing. Wow, I know that person, but I didn't know this about them, right? So you had a passion for dance. You played the violin. You went to a musical junior high school, right? But so at that point now, you come to the United States. What caused that transition? Why did you come here?
I have to say thank you to my mother for that. My mother had just finished her master's degree on hospital administration. And she was a chemistry teacher for 13 years in one of the high schools in Puerto Rico, and decided to go back to school. They have medical record administration master's degree, and then went for that one. And at that time, Joint Commission happened to be recruiting. So they traveled from here to Puerto Rico and did interviews to some of the candidates, and she was one of the ones that was chosen.
Right.
So now you have about 3 months to get ready, you know, if you do take on that task, to come here to New York and work in the city. So that's how we actually came here. So it's not that it was something that we were looking forward to or we even planned.
Right.
But when did this happen that she finished her master's, that opportunity came about and she was like, wait, might not.
So were you scared? Were you angry? Did you fight her to come? Did you want to stay? Tell us what you were feeling at that time.
In the beginning, I think it was just exciting. Oh my God, I'm going to go. But, you know, what are you, 14, barely 14 years old at that time. And it was exciting. You know, you think of it, oh my God, I do music, right? The next Madonna was in place. Let's have all those bracelets and all. But at the same time, it was scary. Because you're like, wait, hold on, do they speak Spanish? So now all these questions starts coming up. But it's not like you had time to plan. Because Mom found out about 3 months prior. But we had just finished school in May. And we actually arrived in New York in August.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like we had a lot of time to say, oh, let me say bye to, you know, my cousins or my friends from school. So did I fight her? Absolutely. Yeah. Once I came here, it was tough. It was tough not knowing the language. In Puerto Rico, we knew how to read to understand, and you comprehend. I did not have any sort of English as far as conversational or understanding. So you could call me any, you know, name in the world, and I'd be like, oh, yes, yes. Everything was yes.
Interesting. Did they have bilingual programs then?
They did, but not at... Here in the city, no.
Right.
Absolutely no.
Right.
You want to know my first experience in school?
Right.
My first day? I cried. I went home. Yeah. I went home only because I had to go to an office first before I even made it to any of my classes, which the program was in English. Everything was in English. I said, oh, okay, I know global studies. You know, I know English. I know math. But I had to supposedly go to the nurse's office to make sure that all my physical paperwork and everything was up to date. Mom couldn't go because she was working. So I had to basically fend for myself at that time. And I went up and down the 3 floors of school. And I never found the office because what was written on the paper that I was given was NOR SA. That's the office I'm looking for. I'm looking for the Norsa.
Oh.
And this was the person that was the bilingual person at that time. I'm giving you back in 1985. And I said, well, I don't see this name in any of the doors that I've gone through. So I sat in a corner and I was like, I'm done. I want to go home.
Right.
I don't want to hear it.
Right.
One of the teachers, he was Cuban, by the way, actually was like, are you okay? I was like, nope, I'm not okay. And he's like, do you speak Spanish? I said, yes. So that was like the first thing. So and then the teacher actually was like, oh, this is what's going on. So I went to the nurse. I didn't understand anything. And instead of going to the class, I went home. I got in trouble,
Right.
but I went home.
But it must have been very traumatic for you.
It was totally traumatic. Because then I was looking at the classes and it was social science and global studies and everything, because here the 9th grade is part of high school. Puerto Rico was part of junior high school. So I had advanced credits because of the extracurricular for drama and dance and violin, the instrument, that they wouldn't give me anything but the higher courses. And they were all in English.
Right.
That's like, great. And I'm supposed to know all of these.
Right. Right.
But it was tough.
And no transitional kind of Spanish and English classes or anything like that?
Well, then I'm going to say, think maybe 3 weeks in, they created the first ESL class for 8 kids that were there. There were a Colombian, it was 2 Mexicans and so on. There was 8 of us. Recently, like fresh from a different part of the country and all. And we started with this teacher, which I have to say, if anyone saved any of us, it was her.
Interesting.
She dedicated her time to us every day,
Right.
2 hours.
Right.
To try to understand and, give us vocabulary and comprehension and all. She didn't speak that much Spanish, but we were able to understand everything she was saying.
So she was an angel in your
So
life.
she was my angel, absolutely.
That God put into your life to make sure that
Absolutely.
you felt some support and some compassion.
Yeah, and if she is still alive, if not,
What
God
was her
bless her
name?
soul, Mary J. Acey.
Okay.
And she was a lady that was there at 6:30, 7 o'clock. I think she was opening the school.
right.
So guess what we used to do? We used to go extra early.
Right.
So she could go over our homework for the other classes.
Wow.
And she would let us know, okay, this is good or not, and so on. And sometimes I would say after school, to try to understand what I needed to go home and do, because I had no idea. Then my godmother from Puerto Rico, who was also a teacher back then, used to kind of find the books that would simulate the course and the information and then send them to me in Spanish.
Right.
So I was basically reading through like 2 books for one subject, trying to figure it out.
Now, at this point, your grandfather is still alive
Yes, in Puerto Rico.
in Puerto Rico, so you're missing him because of that special relationship that you had with him.
Absolutely.
You're missing the island.
Absolutely.
You're missing the culture, right?
Absolutely.
And the heat and all of those things,
Yes.
right? Right? Well, your first winter must have been very traumatic.
I was
yes?
wearing kids. I was wearing kids,
Right.
and my toes were frozen. I was like, oh, yeah, espérate, this is getting worse for
Right.
me. I'm not a cold weather person, I would say. But, it was just interesting. It was a whole different adventure for me at that time.
Right, right. Had you been to New York before you moved here?
No,
Never.
first time.
And so when you moved, am I correct in saying you moved to El Barrio, right? To Spanish Harlem?
Actually, first, because Mom came with a job, she was being housed at one of the residentials buildings for the hospital.
Okay.
So we couldn't stay with her. So we actually moved in with family in Connecticut.
Oh.
So now we're not only leaving all the family behind, but we're meeting new family for the first time and living with them, basically, while my mom was working in the city. So we would see Mom maybe every other weekend or maybe once a month. We would talk on the phone. But that was it until like 6 months down the line. I was really giving her a hard time, I have to say.
Right.
Like, I can't do this.
No, but justifiably, right? Because think about it. You've transplanted, you've had this traumatic experience of leaving a culture that you was very supportive with your grandfather and your family and your neighborhood, and moving to New York. Now you've separated from your own mother.
Correct.
You're in Connecticut. She's in New York. You don't have social media. You don't have FaceTime and all of these
and
things.
we were still doing the button phone.
Correct, right. The rotary dial phones, right? So you didn't have that much time that you could
Not
even
at all.
talk to her.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So that must have been extremely hard. It must have made you very homesick for the island.
Absolutely. totally homesick. Even though I have my primas there that I'm first meeting now, because that was the other thing, because this was family on my father's side that I had never met. But, everything is an adventure. Everything is a learning, I'm going to say, part of it. But, that's how it was. It was tough.
So she lived in the housing for the
doctors,
for the doctors, right?
Yes.
And then she finally was able to find a place, and that was Spanish Harlem, correct?
Spanish Harlem.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So what part? Because I'm from El Barrio.
We was in El Barrio. We was right on 114th Street and between First and Pleasant, right in front of the park.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was fun. It was different again, but it was ours.
Right.
And it was my mother, my sister, and I finally together again.
Right.
So
and at that time, I would imagine El Barrio was still largely Puerto Rican, correct? Mm-hmm. So did you find a sense of support and culture in that community?
Yes,
From your fellow New Yorkers?
Yes,
right?
yes, definitely. Right. You saw bodegas, but for us would be los colmados.
Right.
And I was like, oh, look, un colmado, But yes, it was different. It was different. There was more of what the Puerto Rican culture was. Mm-hmm. The cuchifrito on 116.
Correct. Yeah, you can't
La panaderia,
right?
You get your toasted bread, with un café in the morning. So yes, it kind of gave me that sense of culture. It was hard because mommy worked all day too. Right. But, we were together in a way.
Right.
We were together.
You were together, and you had the support of a community that was providing you with the support and the services that you needed, right? Because so many people don't understand that, in order for a person to assimilate or acculturate or to get comfortable in a new area, they need like the salon. They need the barbershop that's conducive to their hair or to what they want to talk about, and right?
Yeah. It was totally different.
So it was different, but at least it was more supportive with your mother and being in Spanish Harlem.
It was definitely easier to assimilate and kind of be part of or try to belong, because that's the other thing. I felt totally disconnected.
Right.
From, now families in Puerto Rico, we don't have it's not like I could speak to my grandfather like I used to. But then that kind of gave you a little sense of, okay, this makes sense. And when you start getting to know others in school, then you try. Of course, it could be from different cultures as well, but it's not bad.
So when did you finally feel like you were feeling like it was home, finally? How long did it take? Did it take a year? Did it take 3 years? How long did it take before you finally felt like, okay, I can do this. I feel good here?
I'm going to say maybe about a year and a half. And it was still kind of like, okay. Especially when the cold weather came around. I was like, no, it's time to go back. Let's go, vámonos. But no, I think about a year, more or less, trying to figure things out and what you can and cannot do. Right. Coming from, like I said, in Puerto Rico, for example, you wear a uniform to school.
Correct.
Here it was totally different.
Right.
And the lunches. I am so sorry, people. I'm sorry. And I have to say it to the camera. That was terrible. I came from eating rice, corned beef.
No, serious?
In Puerto Rico, the lunches, the food.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely. You had your great bandeja. And you had your fruit. You had your nice cold chocolate milk, no en un cartoncito, in a cup. You used to get rice and beans, arroz con salchicha.
Really?
You had real food.
Right.
The breakfast was the same. It was either avenas or revoltillo de huevo or eggs. It was totally different. So when I first saw that pizza that they put in my thing, I said, ooh, what is this? Oh, my first impression of a PB, what is it, peanut butter and jelly?
Peanut butter and jelly, yeah.
Señores, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. No, thank you.
Wasn't for you?
No. No.
Right.
No.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No,
all right.
not at all.
So, it's trauma in many different ways.
Sí, yes, absolutely. Give me I had to learn how to cook.
Right.
Mommy was, working all day, but it was nice. It wasn't bad. Okay.
All right. So you're going through transitions as a teenager. You're going through transitions of learning a new culture, a new school, a new language. Talk to me about the end of your high school experience. How was that? What were your passions? What were you interested in?
I knew I wanted to help. Don't ask me why.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. I knew that the struggles that I myself was facing, not only without having family around that you could talk to or even have a conversation with, to the settings of the school system here, that was shocking. I actually lost the love for it at one point.
Wow, that's deep.
I did. I was like, are you kidding me? This is insane. This is crazy. With that, I have to say, I graduated a semester before, because I had those extra credits, and I ended up being second of the class that year.
No, really?
Yes.
Even with the language barrier?
Even with the language barrier.
That's amazing.
So,
congratulations.
Yeah. But then you get the barrier of trying to get into school, not knowing the system.
Right.
That was the worst. So I gave up. I started working, and I started doing other things, and I joined the military.
Okay. All right. So you graduate high school. You didn't think about college at all? You didn't think about going and pursuing some sort of post-secondary education?
I did.
Uh-huh.
I did in a way until you would get to the colleges back then.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a hard time because, again, I didn't have the language fully. Yes, I graduated, but it was tough. Mm-hmm. And there was not that much help still back then.
Right.
So it's either you know how to speak English or you know how to speak English, or you try. So the help that I found myself giving to others, I couldn't do for myself. So there was those personal struggles, and now it kind of makes you feel like you're less at times.
Interesting.
Or that you don't belong.
Right.
You just don't belong. Like, no, this is not for you.
Right.
So, it was tough. And then having a single mom working all day, I didn't want to bother her.
Mm-hmm. You didn't want to put the burden on her.
I didn't want to put the burden on her. So I was like, okay, I guess I get a job, find something. Now, when we first came here, I actually did volunteer work during the summer in the hospital. And I was like, oh, this is great. And I did it in a pediatrics unit. Oh. And it was awesome. I wore that, what is it, pink and white striped uniform back then? The candy striper. Yep. I was like, oh my God, I got to wear this. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had a picture.
Yeah, no, but it was great. Right. It was so great, it was definitely something that was another thing that I was, I could do this.
Right.
This
so
is something
that might have lit the fire in you for service.
Yes.
Back then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of explored a couple of maybe options. Nothing felt right. So you decide to enlist in which branch?
Army.
Army. Why? And how did that come about?
Trying to find something where I could fit. Don't ask me, because I was not the most athletic either. Mm-hmm. And of course, now you got to do push-ups in 2 minutes and all the sit-ups, and you got to do the run. But I guess finding something that gave me more of a structure and trying to figure out how things work, because I was still trying to get the system going, and understanding how the system worked and what can I get out of it. So I joined.
Right. And that was such a major presence in our communities. They recruited a lot.
Oh, yes.
In our communities, in Hispanic and Black communities, right? In Spanish Harlem, they always had recruiting offices, and it seemed like the only viable option for so many young people. But how did your mother feel about that? How did your family feel about you enlisting in the Army?
She was not happy.
Right.
Because, of course, I did it behind her back.
Okay.
I just told her, hey, by the way, I'm leaving in like 3 weeks. Wow. So, Puerto Rican mom, single mom, you could imagine what, So, yeah, she didn't speak to me for a bit. But it was just something I needed. It's kind of, I felt, not that I was running away from what I had, because, again, it wasn't easy. But I needed to feel some sort of structure, something, So I was like, oh, maybe this sounds good.
Okay.
So I said, let's go. Right. And I did.
So I've always known you to be a very strong woman, a very independent woman, a woman who really is a leader. Were you scared? Were you, what was your experience in signing up for the armed forces?
It was exciting until you get to basic.
And where did you do basic?
Fort Jackson,
Okay.
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
And once you pull up, and it was like 2:00 in the morning after traveling, and doing, you get on this bus, and all you get is people screaming in your face, like, get out, like you have no more belongings. So now it's basically stripping you from the little bit that you have left.
Right.
So at one point I was like, espérate, I'm doing push-ups at 2:00 in the morning. So this is going to have to be a new start for me. And I'm going to have to hack it because I already signed.
Right.
And I did. I went to Fort Jackson, did my basic, did my AIT in Fort Lee, Virginia. At that time, it was 4 leisure because I thought we didn't do anything, but it was hard work. But it was great. It was a good experience. And after that, I wound up with the National Guard. So I was part of the National Guard. But it was great.
Now, in the Army, was there ever a thought in your mind that this wasn't for you, that you would think about leaving or quitting or anything like that?
When you're getting yelled at, yes. Yeah. Especially right in your face that you're like, oh, okay, let me not do anything or react because, of course, you're going to get in trouble. But in a way, it felt good because you were doing different things. You were learning. I loved the shooting portion of it. You were learning. You were getting to know other people, which I loved. So, yeah. Well, it's off and on. It's off and on.
So you, how many years did you put into the Army?
4.
4 years.
Yeah.
So that was 4 years of service. So thank you for your service. God bless you.
Thank you.
And once you finished your 4 years, you went into the National Guard immediately?
Because I was reserve.
Okay.
So I did all my stuff. I did reserve, and then it was National Guard, reserve National Guard, and I was stationed in Brooklyn. There was a station in Brooklyn, so that's where I would go.
That's right by the bridge?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Fort Hamilton.
Fort Hamilton, yes, indeed. Okay, so you get through that experience, you've gotten some discipline, you felt like welcomed and obviously part of a team, because that's the good thing about our armed forces. They truly create that teamwork and that sense of commitment to cause and God, country, and everything that goes along with that. What was the next chapter?
I fell in love back then. Then you do what you got to do. But I came back and I started working. I then started looking to see what else can I do.
Okay.
Now, okay, let's revamp your life. What do you want to do now and all? I was actually pregnant for Amber when Desert Storm hit. So I didn't have to go because they did. You know how you do, and you still have some years to go.
Right.
So thank God. I mean, my mom fought it to the teeth, I have to say, because the baby was just born. I think she was only like 2 weeks.
Okay.
But then I dedicated myself in the beginning to her, of course. This is my baby now. This is mine. And what do I have to do now to be able to survive and keep moving forward?
Okay.
So there goes Amber.
Yeah, so Amber's born, and
Yes.
she's amazing, and she obviously has followed in your footsteps in so many different ways. She's a strong woman who has served as well. And so you start trying to find your niche, your place in life. What happens next?
I started working at one of the hospitals in the Bronx. I was commuting there. I started in the psych emergency room.
What hospital?
Bronx Lebanon Hospital
Bronx
back
Lebanon,
then.
okay.
So I was on the Fulton side, the crazy people side, Right. And I did. I worked in the emergency room for many years.
Okay.
And then after that, of course, you grow. You take trainings, you do certain things, you start looking for other options. Then I worked in one of the clinics for child and adolescent, and then from there, the last thing I did, which was one of the best programs I've done, was called Bronx CAPSI, which is Community Action for Prenatal Care. And it was a grant. And that grant for that program was for addicts or women who were pregnant and were infected with HIV.
Right, HIV, correct. I remember that.
So I learned about outreach and case management and anything that had to do with administration. And I have to say, another angel that got put in my life was Nancy. Nancy was my supervisor back then, and she was just amazing. She was another Puerto Rican little lady, which had so much to give. And she guided you. So she goes, okay, honey, you got to go back to school. What are we going to do? So she was one of the people that started instilling me, okay, what do you need? How can we help you?
Right.
So that was part of that.
There's so many great angels that we all come, that cross our paths to help us in different chapters of our life. So at this point now, you're doing all of that great work in the Bronx, and you're commuting from where? Where are you living?
I was still
at
in
that
the
point?
city.
Okay,
so I was still in Spanish Harlem, in el barrio.
Okay, so you're in Spanish Harlem, you're commuting to the Bronx, which is not a bad commute, and you're balancing family life and raising a child and being, a great wife or a great mom and all of those things. So she encourages you to get more education. So what's your next kind of step?
Well, I started taking my gen eds, and also I took some of the classes. I did some classes online. I took a class on anything that had to do computer literacy. What was it back then? It was Microsoft, Excel, and all over at Lehman College.
Okay.
So there was a couple of things that we did. It was great though. I have to say, working with the program and everybody that surrounded the program and all the case management just gave you a new outlook of helping.
Okay.
Going actually in the streets in the Bronx with those targeted areas and doing outreach and making sure that these women were either picked up and brought to treatment or, the neonatal unit at that point.
Right.
Making sure that these babies were what we would call zero negative back then.
Yeah, I remember.
So that's part of what I did, and it was great. So, I think each and every experience in life just creates that big puzzle, that keeps amounting to who we are today.
The fact that you were doing it for a largely Hispanic population, Puerto Rican population, was that rewarding for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Even though it didn't matter, because of course, it is who it is, and you help who you help. And I did get to meet a lot of different women from different backgrounds and culture who also were very inspiring. There was times that I would go home crying.
Right.
Because it's like, here I am complaining, but look at what these ladies are going through. Right. So it opens your eyes to so much more of what life really could bring you. So it was tough.
So that's my next question. How did you deal with the emotional kind of draining of your spirit? How did you deal with the potential burnout? How did you deal with the overwhelming emotions that must have been, knowing you the way I know you, right? And how invested you are. How did you deal with that, and who did you go to for support during those times?
Nancy was definitely the key person. She was the administrator there at that time. She was the boss, and she had a great team. So we used to do debriefing. And if there was a hard case of anybody that passed, which we had, we would always work together. Of course, family is key as well. I have to say, you come home and you're crying, and especially when you have the little ones, is when it's harder because you don't want them to see you.
Right.
You don't want them to see you. Mommy's always tough, and mommy knows everything. So you don't want them to see that side of you. You would kind of explain to them, oh, no, mommy's just sad because, but not in details. But within the system, within the program that we had was great. And then, of course, family, you have to. You have to. There's no way. And, of course, you do learn to kind of detach from the situation, even though it does hurt.
Right. Right.
So, and of church. That's the other thing.
So your faith was important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I grew up with it from Puerto Rico.
Right.
So.
Okay. Awesome. So you do your prep work for your next chapter. What is the next chapter? What happens?
Yes. Okay. So we moved here to Long Island looking for a better life for the kids. I have to say, back then the girls, and we decided to make a move. We started looking for houses, and then that's how we came here.
But why Long Island? Why not?
It was either that or
New
Pennsylvania.
Jersey, Pennsylvania.
We looked in Jersey. It was, I guess this is what we liked out of all the research, because we researched for about a year.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, Long Island it is. My husband has this vision of this is where we want to go and this is what we're doing. And I'm like, I'm still trying to picture it. But okay, I'll go with it. And we saw the land, we saw the space, and we're like, okay, let's give it a try. And we did research the school system here and all to make sure that the girls were going to get a good education back then too. Because of course, remember, you don't know. And then you get to do other struggles and other journeys when you get to another different place. But this is why Long Island. So why? I guess we like the land. That's all I could say.
And was what year was that?
1999.
99. So we're talking about 25 years ago or a little bit more. What town did you move to, and why there? And how diverse was it back then?
So we moved to Medford. We're still there. We love the house. Diversity, I think we were like the few Puerto Rican families you could count on one hand back then, especially in the school, more than anything. It was tough. But again, we were looking for a better life for the girls. So we were like, okay, let's give it a try. But you had to really put your foot down to make sure that you were there for your kids. So my advocacy when it came to like 100, all the way to make sure that the kids were okay, the girls, was at that point.
Right.
Making sure that they were going to be fine.
So you had examples where you had to be a strong advocate, where had you not stepped up, your children would not have been cared for in the right way?
Absolutely. Yeah. And my husband could tell you, he sat through many of them with me. And he would be like, we're either going to get a good outcome or I'm going to have to bail you out. Because that was always a joke. And not because I was being disrespectful, but when it comes to the kids, I would stand my ground.
Right.
Maybe I might not defend myself as good, but I wanted to make sure that my kids did not go through any of the struggles that I went through.
Right.
Because of the language and because of anything else, and me being able to say, no, this is what I draw the line and these are my children. I'm sorry. So, yes. I had to.
Well, and especially for you, having that life experience of having that traumatic kind of, cultural switch, and then now having that for your own child.
Exactly.
That must have been a trigger to make sure that, whoa, I'm not letting this happen.
Exactly.
Right.
And we moved here because, like I said, my husband just liked the land.
Right.
He was like, I love this. This is where we're going to be. It's private. I said, okay. First it was like a swamp. I was like, what do you want to do here? But it was great. And I have to say, we have created great memories in the house.
Have you ever missed the excitement and the city, the hustle, the bustle of the city?
Maybe in a way, but because I grew up in Puerto Rico, this is what we have now.
Right.
So you have land and the kids could play outside, and we make sure that happened. And they could roam free. In the city, it was an apartment. Correct. You had to come outside. So in that sense, no, not really.
Right.
And if I go to the city now, I'm going to have to be honest. For the day is great, take me back home after. I like my tranquility. Yeah, no, keep me back in my old huequito or whatever. Yeah.
You're out there in the campo with the deer and stuff.
That's right. We feed them every day. Ask Amber. Yeah.
No, I visited your home, and I know that's a little, even from Nassau, it's a kind of little trip there for me.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful way of looking at it, that it kind of brought you back to your roots, brought you back to space and openness and land and a sense of a good school system and safety and security and all of those things.
Yep.
That's a beautiful thing. So now you move out here, and at that point you're working where?
In the city.
Okay, so you're commuting every day. How is life balance working for you at that point?
Terrible.
Right.
It was terrible. I did it for about 6 years, more or less, until my neighbor back then, who we became friends, who was actually putting the girls on the bus, being able to take care of them, because she did overnighters, decided to retire. She was a captain in Rikers. And she was like, Mamita, I'm going back to, she happens to be Puerto Rican, so my girls were still getting that culture. By then, my son was traveling with us to the city to his sitter. So there was a lot of juggling here and there. But we had no time with the girls. So I started seeing also that I was missing out.
Right.
And the girls were actually missing out on having to get their, the baptism or their the confirmation and, first communion. And I was like, espérate, what am I doing?
Right.
I know we wanted a better life.
Yeah.
But there's a balance. So we were leaving the house 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And getting home 7:30, 8 o'clock after 3 hours of traffic on the LIE coming back from the city.
14-hour days.
So,
right?
yes. So it was not, so of course here goes another wake-up call. Okay, so who's going to take care of your kids? You don't know anybody.
Right.
You work in the city. You're never here. And after discussing it with my husband, I was like, okay, somebody is going to have to, of course. So I stood home.
Okay.
I stood home in 2005. I made the decision once she moved. Stood home for a year. I did all the activities that you could think of with the library and summer times, or the girls got to see, and the boys, even though he was little, the museum and all. And that was my way of, giving back to them.
Okay.
And so I took a year. I took some classes, and I was like, okay, I'm home. Let me just take and add a couple of more classes to my curriculum. So yeah, that was part of that.
So so that year, it revitalizes your spirit. It helps with your relationship with your children. It helps with life balance in your home, right? What happens next?
I decided to clean the basement of all the toys and the computers and everything that you could think of the kids. And a friend of mine, actually, at that time, because there is a preschool down the block from where you live, which I'd never seen, I'm going to be honest. And you could donate. They will take all the books. They're in good condition. Take the toys. They use them. I packed up the card and I said, okay, great. I called. They said, yes, you could bring it. And I went. And all I was going to go do was just donate, drop off the stuff, and go back home. But they happened to have somebody waiting there to be taken care of, but there was no one that spoke the language. So the director at the time was like, do you speak Spanish? I was like, yes. Is everything okay? They're like, can you do me a favor? I don't have anybody. So I translated. The lady was looking for services. It's a Head Start program. Lady was looking for services and all. I did the translation, and I said, okay, so I'll see you later. This is what she needs. Oh, thank you so much. I said, can I come back tomorrow? I still have more stuff in the house if you would take them. I said, absolutely. I go back the next day, and the same story. There was a lady, she was from Mexico, I remember, and she goes, señorita, yo no hablo inglés.
Right.
And there was nobody that was speaking the language, and said, can you help me? I was like, okay. So again, I tell the director, and the director at the end goes, are you looking for a job? I said, no. I said, yeah, are you kidding me? Like, no, I'm not looking for a job. And I went and told my husband, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, forget it. Like, what? Well, you never know. But I had given her my number.
Right.
So she calls me and he goes, I'm actually following up. I'm getting an influx of Spanish-speaking parents. We want to make sure we service them. I only have one advocate, I think it was at the time. And I was like, no, I'm not. He goes, wait, I said, no, I have the baby. At the time, the baby, Justin, I had him on a preschool half a day so that he could get some socialization. And I was like, no, I'm not looking for a job. Oh, you could come and volunteer, help me. I said, look, if you really need me, I'm not too far from here, call me. Well, big mistake. Big mistake, because she would call me, and I was like, okay. Then I came and told my husband. My husband was like, so what are you going to do? I was like, what can I do? I've never done anything with preschoolers, you could start on a teacher's aide position and so on. I said, in the classroom? With babies? Are you kidding me? But I was like, you know what? Let's see. Balancing, knowing that Justin was going into kindergarten, even though he was still in pre-K, I was like, oh, maybe, because I was paying this much back then for sitting. I won't pay that. I will be home to be able to put the girls on the bus, take him to school, same thing when you get back. And I'm saying, you know what? Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, the only thing I have to do is resign.
Right.
When I told my husband what I was going to make an hour, he thought I was crazy. He goes, this is totally temporary, right? Because there's no way. I said, Papa, look at it this way. So now I'm trying to convince him because I already said, yeah, look at it this way. This is how much we make. This is how much we were paying for, because he was still working in the city.
Right.
So he was still doing the commute with my mom, who used to also work in the city. And it was just interesting. And I'll be making 19 years in the agency.
I know. So the rest is history.
The rest, yes. So here I am.
Almost 20 years of service from
Yep.
that one chance kind of meeting of taking old toys and books
Yes.
to Head Start, and then rejecting the offer at first, and then eventually taking the teacher's aide position.
Yeah.
So tell me all the different roles that you've had
my God.
at Head Start since that teacher's aide position.
Teacher's aide. Then right away I became a family advocate, which I loved because I did case management, as you already know. So that was like another wake up call for me, because I was like, oh my God, I could work directly with families, with the resources and all. Then I was a parent involvement specialist. Of course, you have to go back to school in all of these. I had nothing that had to do with preschool, so I did my childhood. My CDA, what we call CDA, development associate back then. In order for me to do the advocate position, I had to go back to school and get my family, my FDC, so my family development credential, which was a whole year of work, and I still have my portfolio. And interesting enough, my CDA, because I wanted to keep my roots and my culture and my Spanish language, I volunteer to say I want to do it bilingual.
Right.
Because I should have said no. Because I only meant double work. So instead of one portfolio, I had to do two. One in English and one in Spanish.
Correct.
So I had double the work, but I was so proud that I could do it in my language. The books, then they were starting to get more books in the language in the classrooms. Because that was the other thing I started changing. Even though I wasn't the boss, like, how come we don't have books about, or in Spanish? And they were like, well, we're working on it. I said, well, espérate, let's go.
Right.
But case management was also great, I have to say. And there I met so many great people. Another angel, the teacher, they were amazing. Miss Roberta, and I know she's retired today. She was just so giving, because that was a lot of work. That was, the portfolio was just, and the test.
Right.
But it was great. And then 3 years after being in the center, I was given the opportunity of becoming the parent involvement specialist. So it was case management at another level, you heard me? At another level, but at the central administration office. And I transitioned there in 2009. Then I had the parent involvement and fatherhood specialist. That's what my other fatherhood portion of it kicks in, because that is part of the ERSI, we call it as well, or the framework of Head Start.
Right.
So Head Start, even though it's preschool, we work with the entire family. So part of it is the parent involvement.
That's one of the things about Head Start that I've learned over the years, and getting to know you and getting to know a little bit more about Head Start. They have amazing programs that really are supportive of not just moms, but fathers as well, right? With the Nurturing Fathers program that you did, as well as the Opening Doors, right? Parent curriculum and all of those things.
Yes, so those are the
Tell us
curriculums.
about that.
Definitely. One of the things that Head Start does, it keeps growing. And we look for more mandates or more new standards and all, but it does include the entire family. So the Abriendo Puertas or Open Door curriculum was the curriculum that we adopted, only because it teaches all the parents that take it about life with a child. It teaches them how to work with the children, whether it's on a mental state. We go over how to be your children's first teacher. You're the one that knows your child.
Sure.
So we can only do the work, in combination with your support.
Right.
Talking about nutrition. We touch upon all the different aspects of a childhood and how the children evolve to become, obviously adults. So that's Abriendo Puertas, and that's 10 sessions of 2 hours each. So the parents must commit to do that. You also have the Nurturing Fathers, which is just for the dads or the men, and that's 13 sessions of 2.5 hours. And there, what I like about it is that we work from Nurturing Fathers program, you get your own journal. So each participant gets their own journal. That will be theirs, and they could take their notes and all. But we talk about each and every topic that you could think of. And one of my favorite ones is the boy within you.
Right.
Like what happens and why you parent or why you father the way you do now, according to whatever your history is. So it's just another beautiful curriculum. So we do that as well.
No.
But we have to train.
Right.
We have to get certified in order to be able to teach it. So right now it's myself and another staff member that have the certifications.
No, it's fascinating, and I think it helps with the development and the mental health of all of our dads, right?
Absolutely.
Who as a gender, and I'll speak for myself, it's hard for us to express ourselves. It's hard for us to show weakness. It's hard for me to, kind of ask for help. And, mental health is such an important issue in today's society, and it's so much more accepted today than it was years ago. But having that program will definitely help in the household, with the entire family, and most importantly, with the individual dads, right?
It does. It actually does, and it's interesting because the classes that we've had, they apply it to the daily, functions, and sometimes they're not looking at what they're doing. I've worked with dads that feel like I cannot interfere in certain areas of the upbringing of my child, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm not trying to get in between the relationship, but until you start communicating and letting your partner or your co-parenting, which is difficult today, know where you stand and start communicating, you're not going to be able to get there.
Right.
And that's where the struggles come into, the fights come into, the arguments come in, because we're not communicating.
Correct.
That's just part of that.
Right. It's a key component of any success in life.
Correct.
Is communication and knowing when you need help and knowing when to ask for help and being vulnerable enough to ask, right?
Exactly.
So in the last 5 years, your role has been parent and community engagement. And I think that's really like your niche.
It is.
Right? That's where I've gotten to know you. That's where so many people are inspired by you. So many people say, how does she do it? Why does she never say no? How can she do it? I'm sure, your family is complaining about not seeing you. Are you working too hard?
Yes.
Talk to us about that parent and community engagement role and why you do it so well and why you seem to be loving it so much.
I love it because it helps, but I love it because I connect with it. Basically, what we're doing is helping those through the struggles. A lot of the parents that we may work with may feel ashamed. And I have to say, because it's just feedback from some of them, like, Miss Anna, asking for help from Head Start, it's not something I envision.
Right.
But who has $1,500, $2,000 a month to pay for childcare?
Right.
Among all the other bills that you may have. But when they come into Head Start and they see all the different resources that they could tap into, it's like, oh, wait, hold on. What are we doing? What can I do? So that's what my role is. And it was a role that has evolved as, I think I've had like 15 different titles, because one of the things that I do is also part of the decision making in the agency. So I train the parents on how to make decisions and the governance portion of it. And community, what can I say? When you connect, when we get to meet people like you, for example, Mark, and I have to say it, the same way you say, oh my God, I'm inspired by you. Sometimes I look at you, I'm like, where are you today? Like, what are you doing today? Only because sometimes I don't know. If you ask me for a formula, I cannot tell you.
Right.
I can tell you that my husband just gives me the look. It's like, do I cook? Do you cook? Do we buy out today? Is Amber picking up something on the way? No, and it's just part of who you are, and it's something that makes you happy. Right. Sometimes we dive into so much that it's tough because our own families suffer. Right. Those struggles. So now you're trying to balance. Those who know me, and anytime there's an event, poor Frank, sorry, thank you, I drag him with me. I'm like, come on, Bob, we're going out or we're doing something. because I'm trying to create a balance, which is not the easiest. Because there's times that I have left my office, go home and sit right in front of the computer, and then it's 10:30, 11 o'clock when I finally make it to bed. But I've been sitting down working. But you see the need out there, and you're hoping that if I could leave those little grains to say it's going to be better on later on,
Right.
then I did my job. But I also wanted to be an example for my kids. Like, yes, we may not have it all, but you guys are blessed. I would take them with me to events. I would take them with me to play Santa Claus, for example. And I remember Justin actually leaving his action figures one day to a kid. We went to drop off all the, and he was like 6 years old.
That's beautiful.
And then we cried all the way home because he doesn't have a bed, or he doesn't have, just experiencing that. I'm like, oh my God, am I traumatizing my kids, or am I doing a good thing for my kids? But it just grows on you. I could sit behind a desk and do reports all day, but I have to be able to connect them to something. I have to be able to say, how do we move forward? How can I make this better? How can I do for someone what I wish would have been done to me back then when I needed the help? And I couldn't, you turn, but you don't find that, because it was non-existent at that time.
Right. Well, I can definitely tell you that you make a difference in a lot of people's lives, and Head Start is blessed to have you. They're a great program and an initiative that needs more support, right, from our government and from our county and from our state and from individuals who are out there. I think that it's important to obviously keep balance. So how do you balance yourself? How do you deal with maybe being burned out, or what hobbies do you have? How do you balance your life to make sure that you are feeding your soul and your family's soul?
I'm going to say I'm still working on it, because it's true. It's on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Like, there's certain days, and now I could say no easier than before because I don't know how to say no. Right. Oh, yes, I could do that. And then sometimes you find yourself either double booking yourself or like kind of grabbing into more than you really can. Now, I have a team, and I know you've met the ladies, which without their support, I can be where I'm at, or I cannot do half of the things that I do today. So another way for me to balance is that they both have lives.
Right.
So I have to now work with them, and then kind of take the example of what I just did with them, with myself and my own family, only because it's not the easiest. You get so embedded into, oh my God, no, this one needs, and here I am. For example, on the 23rd, I was out until like 10 o'clock at night, delivering gift to like different 15 families with another group that, adapted our families. But when you have a mom grab you and cry on you for like 5 minutes and you cannot let go, and you're like, it's okay, and no, you don't know what you've done, that just makes it all. And you could tell. I'm not telling you these families, and they not asking for, I don't know, the latest Xbox or a car or anything. They're just asking for support, a coat, a jacket, something that's going to bring the smile to their children that at that time they may not be able to do. So it's just part of that.
So for those people that don't know anything about Head Start, or don't know enough information about Head Start, what kind of services do you offer to families, and how do they qualify?
Okay, so Head Start, as you know, is a federal program. It was born out of the War on Poverty, and this was back in 1965. We here Long Island Head Start opened their doors here in Suffolk County in 1966. So we're one of the few programs that are still standing from back then. We currently have 24 sites in Suffolk County alone, and we have about 1,200 families that we serve annually. But even though many people would see it as a child care program, we're not. There's curriculum-based, we have socialization, we provide nutritious foods because we cook all our foods. It's all done by a nutritionist. We also provide educational programs, as you know, parent involvement, training for parents. And what we do is we go out there, train, get the certification, and come back and teach. So these parents are receiving these trainings totally with no cost to them. It's totally free. So it's just another service that they could get. We now connect them to resources. So when you see me out looking to see what other resources are in the communities, so that I could bring it back to those parents that, that are in need of it. Do they want to go back to school? We work with them. Let's register you, or these are the steps that you need to take. So again, it's just a holistic way of taking care of the family, because it's not only the child. So by the time the child leaves us and is ready for the school district at 5, they know what they need to know. Parents would say, oh, no, they're just playing all day. They are. They're totally playing all day. But they're also learning.
Right.
And they learn through play. So that's what we do.
And the families that would want to bring their child to a Head Start program, what are the criteria? What are the qualifications? Is it income-based?
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
It's definitely income-based. That's one of the qualifications. But we also have children that need certain supports. So we have children with IEPs, so those individual programs that they need. We have children that have certain needs. So there's different criteria that we could work with the family. It's definitely income-based, and we go by the federal poverty guidelines. So when you look at those guidelines, you'll be like, oh, there's no way nobody's going to qualify, but there is.
Right.
We have many, many families here that do meet those guidelines and are in need of the program for the children to attend.
Okay. And how can someone like me, or someone who doesn't have a child that needs to go to a Head Start program, how can we help you? Do you have opportunities for volunteerism? Do you have a way we can donate either time or money? Talk to us about how the public at large can help Head Start.
Well, definitely, because we work with the 80-20 formula that the federal government implies. 80-20 means that we do get our grant approved, but we only get 80% of that grant. So every year I'm looking, and when I say I'm looking, it's the entire agency, for about $5.8 million, whether it's in equipment, whether it's volunteers, whether it is cash, because of course we could always put it back to the program. I do have to proudly say 85% of the funding goes straight to the kids and the families. So we are very
overhead is 15 or less.
15. So that includes salaries.
Correct.
So, you could see where it is. So the staff that is here because they love it, because they like what they do, because they like teaching, or because they like case management, not because
they're trying to get rich.
No, sorry, that's the wrong place. People, right. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to drive anyone away, but no, it's definitely not. Right. I've looked at other places, and people are like, you could be making more somewhere else. I said, yeah, I know. But I like what I do.
Right.
The day that I no longer connect and I cannot connect with what I do, then I get it. Then it's time for me to move on and be respectful, not only to myself, but also to the agency. But when it comes to that, we always look for volunteers. Whether it's helping in the centers, you could go in and read a book to the classroom, and that is something because the teachers do it, that you are volunteering. Or if you play an instrument and you want to go, like we had the Three Kings going there, that is an activity that falls under our multicultural portion of the curriculum. So that's why we want to bring these experiences to the kids. But yes, volunteering, cash donations, of course, always help. And our board of directors, definitely appreciate that, because they do play a big role on anything that has to do with the finances of the agency.
So you wear so many other hats, right? Besides Head Start, you're involved in so many other things. Name a couple of the ones that you are very proud of.
Okay, so Her Story Writers Network, I love them.
Okay.
They work with the participants on how to put their story on paper as a one-page moment. And it's just great. The founder, Erica Duncan, she's just an amazing lady. And again, you have to have that connection. And I met her through Head Start. All these relationships that we create is because of that. And today, like I have nothing better to do, as my husband would say. I took on the role of the president of the board, so I'm part of the board of directors for them. But it's an amazing program, and it's great. And we have meetings at 7:00 in the morning. Sometimes I'm getting, dressed and walking around the house, and my husband is like, "This is the only time we got." It's like, "Are you crazy?" But again, it's just that type of program that also gives back, that teaches people how to put those struggles and maybe the trauma that you have not been able to either get through with a therapist and all, put it in writing. Use it as that self-healing portion of it. And that's one of the programs that I love. What else? Literacy, Suffolk. Another great program. Susan, the director there, it's just like us. She's out there, she's looking, but this program provides tutoring, one-on-one tutoring in English to Spanish speaking, ESL. So, and this is totally free. So why not? So yes, I'm part of the board there as well. And we make certain decisions to keep bringing tutors in. So if anybody likes tutoring, they're looking for volunteers as well. Go ahead and take the training. It's totally free. You could do it one-on-one at the public library, and they have settings. So why not?
So many of these things, these roles that you play, that you take leadership on, have roots in your life, right?
They
in
do.
your beginning in Puerto Rico,
They do.
in your transition to El Barrio,
They do.
right? In the traumatic experience of you moving to a new school district and not speaking the language, right?
Not at all.
And they all kind of tie together. It's an amazing journey that you've shared with us. But there's one in particular that I was like, wow, she is amazing. This civilian academy thing that you just did. Talk to us about that. I was like, what the?
That was just another crazy thing. Okay, and I have to be honest, I went home, I was like, Pa, this is what I'm going to do. Of course, you don't need luck. Just another person that is always in the community. She calls me. She goes, they're doing this. Jasmine. I was like, oh, Jasmine. I said, okay, give it a try. I had no idea what I was doing, Mark.
Right.
I had no idea. I signed up by sending the application, and I was like, wait, it's 16 weeks for 3.5 hours every week, and on Thursdays. I don't know. But once you commit, you're in. They do the background check, they do everything. But one of my best experiences so far.
So tell our audience very quickly, our audience, what is it?
Civilian Police Academy, you get to know. You learn everything that the recruits in the police academy learn. We shoot. We learn about victims, crimes unit. Anything that a police officer gets as training, you get. Basic. Without the push-ups part and without the training part. But you get it. You get to learn so much. And then you get to see these police officers as who they are. The instructors with the heart that they give you the information with. It's just the love. I have to use the word love. P.O. Pitch, P.O. Adriano, all of them. I have to say, you don't know which one is better. What caught my eye the most, Mark, was they're human beings. And you know how you asked me before about what happens when you go through trauma and you were doing this with the HIV? These human beings, just because they carry the title of a police officer, they're still going through all these.
Right.
They're taking care of us, for us to be, safe. But they're putting their lives out there. So we get to see them and get to know them on a different level. Right. But you learn so much. So for me, that became my me time, away from work, away from me having to make decisions, away from family. Just trying to, let me learn something new. And we had a beautiful graduation right before Christmas. But I'm telling you, you learn about everything. You even do EVOC, so you get to ride there out in West Hampton. You get to drive and learn how to, how they maneuver when they're in a chase and all. So anything, if you want to take something that you want to learn that you could be passionate about, because you do become passionate about it after, that's definitely a program, and it's totally free.
Right.
Totally free, but
Right.
you get to meet the best people ever.
Right.
You know, and how they work with the community and all the training. Because I have to say, very proud of Suffolk County PD, because they get so many hours of training, including mental health, which is great.
Right.
And they're amazing.
Yeah.
I have to say, they're amazing. That was my last thing that I did, yes. I just finished in December.
I was like, wow, she's like a SWAT person.
I know,
now.
I loved it. I loved it. We did so many scenarios and all. So you're actually there, and they are raw to the point of being able to explain
Right.
how everything works
Okay.
and what they, face every day.
All right. So, in closing, if you were to give our listeners some advice, what kind of advice could you give my daughters, or you could give, any young man, young woman, or anyone that's watching this podcast today? What words of wisdom would you give them for their journey and how they're getting through, all of their challenges and all of their successes?
Definitely stay true to self. Know who you are. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of masking sometimes that we have to do because we're trying to either fit in or trying to meet somebody else's expectations, which are not ours. And of course, that comes with time. So I would say stay true to self, and don't ever give up. And don't let anyone tell you, you cannot do that, because you can. Right. You definitely, those skills are there. Those skills are there. The love, as long as you have the love and passion for it, go for it, and just look for the right advice. Just don't take advice from anybody, And I'll leave you with basically what my new project will be. That will be a next one. Personal project at this point is that it's aspiring legacy. How do we aspire legacy? But what do we need to master in order to really leave that legacy behind that you want people to remind you by? Not just anything. No, she got 20 awards on her wall. No, that's not what I'm looking for.
Right.
True legacy as to who we are.
Yes.
What can we give back? That's what I could say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh, my God. I'm so grateful to you. You inspire me. You are a person that I consider to be part of my chosen family. You're the champion here today, and you're part of the Champion Circle chosen family. You have made a difference. You have changed the world in a very, very definite way. And there are many people besides myself that are grateful to you for all the work that you do, your passion, and your genuine, true-to-self nature. That is critical, and that goes right to what you just suggested.
Thank you.
Yes. So on behalf of the Champion Circle, we thank Liga de Justicia Abogados, Liga de Justicia Foundation, and all of our watchers, listeners, and all of those folks who are suggesting new people to showcase and highlight, similar to Anna Figueroa today. And we thank Miss Figueroa. Anna is amazing, and you will get to know her. If you ever interact with her, you will see how genuine and how true to self that she is. So we thank you for watching, and we ask that you continue to watch the Champion Circle. Thank you.